Well. Good night, one and all. It is very late in the night. In fact, it's only 3 minutes to midnight where I live, which is Atlantic Standard Time. So this is a very, very late stream. We gotta go underground. We gotta go underground. Whoa. Well, anyways, we're gonna drop it down for you guys. Blessings from the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. As you can see from this stream, we're going to talk about freedom of Palestine and where we are at present when it comes to that and other things concerning that. And we're also going to talk about Rebel Moon, particularly a particular quotation. But before I can do anything, because this is the first video on this channel that I'll be speaking to you guys about, I'm going to start off with the Most High first. So I always start off with a piece of scripture. And today our scripture is coming from the book of John, chapter 12. John chapter 12, verses 20 to 26. Some Greeks who had come to Jerusalem to attend the Passover paid a visit to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee. They said, "Sir, we want to meet Jesus." Philip told Andrew about it, and they went together to ask Jesus. And Jesus replied, "The time has come for the Son of Man to enter glory. The truth is, a kernel of wheat must be planted in the soil. Unless it dies, it will be alone, a single seed. But its death will produce many new kernels, a plentiful harvest of new lives. Those who love their life will lose it, and those who despise their life in this world will keep it for eternity. Those who want to be my disciples must come and follow me." All right, let's get into it. I am Christ I Am Disciple, and you're watching my channel. We're going to talk a little bit about Rebel Moon. In fact, we're going to start off with one of the quotations from Rebel Moon. It was General Titus who said this, I believe. He said, it may not have been General Titus, it may have been Jimmy. But anyway, whichever one it is, the saying goes like this: "Are you willing to die for what you believe?" Let's get into it. So I just read a piece of scripture, and a lot of times we take for granted the freedoms that we have, not understanding that these freedoms were paid in blood. Okay? Many people died, sometimes horrible deaths, in order for us to have the freedom we have today. Currently, if you live in the Western world and you're under Western world rules, you live under something called a democracy. But for that democracy to have happened, how that was born, it was born out of revolution. It was born out of those people who decided they were not going to lay down. They were not going to just be a part of a monarchy or an empire where they had no say. It was under the French Revolution that the first democracy, or the first birth of democracy, began, even though it ended up in a dictatorship. This was the first time we saw democracy at play in the modern world, in Europe. It was called Viva la Libertad, long live liberty, where the people were freed from their monarchy. Still formed a monarchy, but nonetheless. In a democracy, particularly in a democracy that's called a republic, representatives, hence republic, representatives of the people are elected by the people to make decisions and choices that reflect or are supposed to be a reflection of what the people want. In such a system, there's something called a mandate or a charter that these people are elected on, and that mandate must be carried out. I want to say that in the modern world today, our elected officials have been falling short of the mark. In almost every country of the world, in every part of the world, our elected officials are not necessarily a reflection of the people because of corruption. I want to say also that the scripture that I just read involves, almost for any leader, it involves sacrifice. In the Islamic faith, they respect martyrs and martyrdom. And in the early Christian faith, we also respected martyrs and martyrdom. In fact, we remember the names of the martyrs who built the pillars under which we today, enjoy the benefits of their travails, labors, tortures, sufferings. What is called modern Christianity today is nothing like the Christianity of past. In fact, the Christianity of the past, the early Christianity, was more like Islam, was more like Judaism. And today it's much more watered down. But suffice it to say that we still enjoy the benefits of freedom, where we can choose what we want to do. To a certain degree, we have a certain amount of freedom. And freedom of speech particularly, which is a very valuable thing, because of the foundations of people who laid that foundation in blood. The fact that I, a person of color, could be speaking to you today from a country which was once colonized is a reflection of what democracy has done and has liberated us to be able to do. And so it's a precious thing, and it's the only thing I know. I grew up in democracy, but it's a precious thing, and it's something that you should not sell yourself short on. I'm already 7 minutes in. I can't believe it. Don't forget you can smash the like button. I do have a business here. And if you look in the description, you will see that you can donate to my channel via PayPal. I believe I put the PayPal link in the description of this stream. So all you have to do is look in the description of the screen, and you can, if you want to, because as I said before, and I will repeat for all people who don't know, I said it on my boxing channel, Google does not pay me for doing this. I'm in a part of the world called Trinidad and Tobago, where Google does not pay us. We are not able to get money from Google. If you're in countries like the UK, Australia, Japan, America, Canada, you get paid by Google. But here, I don't get paid. So if you want to pay me, feel free to put a donation. All right? Okay, so let's get into it. So one of the things I would hope all of us here will be able to overcome is the fear of dying. A lot of people are afraid to die. But I will try to explain to you why that's important. You should not fear it, you should embrace it. And I will explain. Using the parable that we just spoke of, you will realize in life that it is a cycle. It's a cycle of life and death. And everything has its season. You've seen there are different seasons, and a season begins and a season ends, meaning a season is born and then it dies. And you've seen this over and over and over. The cycle continues. But in order for the cycle to continue, something must die so that something can be born. Okay? It's just the way how it goes. Jesus, in the scripture here, is describing that cycle. He says, unless a grain of wheat or a kernel of wheat falls to the earth, falls in the soil, and dies, you can't have more plants. You can't have twofold, threefold plants. The seed must die for life to begin again. We are benefiting the benefits of a democracy. We are benefiting the benefits of freedom of speech because others came before us and laid down their lives during a time when speech was not allowed. A lot of lives died for this freedom to become something that's ubiquitous and everyone now has it. Freedom comes with a price. Some things are more important than existing. Some things are more important than living. And I say this in the comforts right now that other people don't have in certain parts of the world, the comforts of being able to live in a world where I am free to say whatever I want to say and do almost anything I want to do. We must remember the people that came before us and the sacrifices that they made. As a person of color, as a person who has grown up free since a child, we cannot take for granted the people in our given country which died, sacrificed so much, and were treated so barbarically in the beginning, and bit by bit those freedoms were accrued till to this day. Now I have those freedoms. You have those freedoms. Freedoms to practice whatever religion. Freedom to walk around and not be discriminated against. Freedom to be able to get up and choose what you want to do in a day. My parents, who came before me, sacrificed. They died, but I remember my parents. Every building has a foundation. And that foundation is not above ground, but below ground. Okay, never mind. There's a song that I wrote a while ago, several years ago. It's called Underground. And it says, lately, trackers are coming for me. I got to go underground. I got to go underground. And what I mean by that is, all of us are going to be buried 6 feet under. All of us have to die. But the foundation that we provide for others that come after us is very important before we die. Human beings are built off of emotion. They're inspired by other people's work, even if these people pass away. It is not, while life is a gift and it's a wonderful thing, it is not about being alive, but it's more so about what you do with the life. So that when you're gone, it has had an impact on other people. And that will be based on your conviction or your belief. So, for example, and that's why they say, are you willing to die for what you believe? That's a quote in Rebel Moon. And Jesus is saying basically the same thing. He's saying, if you want to follow me, then you must be willing to die for what you believe, as I died for what I believed. And when I think of the people of Palestine, and we right now are in the middle of a ceasefire, and there has been some exchange of prisoners, and it was beautiful to see the joy on some of those families' faces when they greeted the person who was freed. There was a lady. First of all, I'll come from the Palestinian side, and then I'll go to the Israeli side. There was a lady who was in prison for uh, for 7 years. She was in prison, and she was allowed to go back home. And the family was so elated. Now, the Israeli soldiers, they still took away, they destroyed their greeting. They had nice cookies and stuff, and the soldiers came into the house and took away all the cookies and everything. But they didn't care. They were just so happy to see this family member come back home. They were overjoyed. The joy was ridiculous, and they captured it on tape. And then we saw the Israeli families crying and over the Israeli that came back to home. They were so happy. They didn't know that they were ever going to see this person again, and they were so happy and elated to see that person. And then there were some people from Taiwan who, the families of Taiwan found out that they were going to receive some of those people. And so they're just waiting with bated breath to see if they see their loved ones again. And it's so interesting to see the same reaction by three different people. The Taiwanese people, the same reaction: elation, joy. The Israeli people, the same reaction: elation, joy. Palestinian, and it showed the commonness of our humanity in those moments. There was another Release the Snyder Cut Twitter handle, shared another video with a young kid, about maybe 7-8 years of age, peacefully walking through the streets of Palestine. No drones overhead, no bombings. And he had this peaceful look on his face with a smile. So peaceful, it brought me to tears for a minute. I was hearing peaceful music in the back of my head as well. And he was so calm, so happy as he was talking in, I guess, Arabic to his phone. And I looked at that and I said to myself, this is what life is about. Cherishing these moments. I was listening to I felt so good because you have to understand, in Palestine today, the Palestinians don't know if they're going to live or die. They're constantly under surveillance. They're constantly in a state of anxiety. You know, Israel, if it gets mad for some reason, could just bomb them. They could get shot in the streets. You know, Israel bombs just about anything. You don't know. You have to expect the unexpected at any point in time. You have to get ready to run at any point in time. You know. And so to see that young man so peaceful, walking the streets on his phone, seemingly quoting a poem, I believe he was quoting a poem, saying some poetry, was next world level enjoyable to watch. We had been fighting very hard for a ceasefire. We didn't get a ceasefire. What we have gotten is a pause. It's supposed to be a 4-day pause. So we're into day 2. We're going into day 3. If today's Saturday already, this will be day 3 of the pause. And Israel intends after 4 days to start back the bombardment, which is insane. And I've already put my input in, and so I will speak to the world leaders right now if they ever see this video. To the head of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, I would suggest to you at this point in time that you ensure that besides sanctions towards Israel, that you ensure that the United Nations military forces are on the ground in Gaza and also controlling the airspace of Gaza. This would ensure and be somewhat of a deterrent to Israel so that they don't fly over Gaza and bomb Gaza. Because the United Nations has the backing of 190 something countries, whether the US agrees with this or not, I hope the Security Council and even NATO will get involved in this and ensure that they protect the people of Palestine from Israel. Since Palestine is not declared a state, but it's not necessarily a part of Israel, it's like one of those influx things. Similarly, I hope that UN presence will be present in the West Bank as well as in East Jerusalem and in the northern areas of Israel where there are Palestinian settlements. I think it's important now that an international body backed by all the nations of the world intervenes here to ensure no more life is lost. I think that's the way to go. Their presence there should be a deterrent to Israel, unless they want to attack the allied forces of the United Nations and therefore be directly in line for sanctions, criminal warfare, and also for the United Nations to have to use force on them. And all the countries of the world, a lot of countries of the world right now would happily fund the United Nations military to make sure they have all the weapons possible and all the supplies possible. And we're talking everybody. We're talking Russia, China, Germany, France, all of them would come in to make sure that Israel backs down. Because once you have like an army or some sort of military presence, I don't think Israel will just run over because they'll realize there's opposition from a real military presence. And that's just to ensure that the ceasefire continues even further onwards. And because Netanyahu is talking about bombing again, and that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? He says they're going after Hamas. They haven't found anything that has to do with Hamas. There's not been any evidence of that. In fact, they should withdraw their troops from northern Gaza, and they should withdraw themselves from northern Gaza. They should have intelligence maybe on the ground, but they shouldn't have tanks and military equipment inside of Gaza right now. They shouldn't, because they haven't found anything of significance. But they have demolished buildings with bombs. It's just tremendous damage they have done. And once again, no significant gains. So get out of Gaza. So what I would like, just this is just me, one citizen of the world, but you guys can circulate this video. What I would like of the United Nations and the Security Council, and if there's a majority vote by the United Nations, then the United Nations presence should be in Gaza, not only in Gaza, but also in the West Bank and all the other territories of Palestine, occupied territories or otherwise. It is highly suggested that they do that. I can't say to Israel what politics they should do. I would suggest that Netanyahu steps down, that Yair Lapid replaces him, the former prime minister of Israel. He at least did a better job in terms of the appearance of Israel complying to international law somewhat. And he kind of was able to finesse the situation better. But I do think that Netanyahu needs to step down. I think that Yair Lapid is more of he's not a right-wing extremist. He's more centrist in his views. And I think he would bring a much more sober output. I've been sort of having Twitter. I've been sending him Twitter information. I'm sure he knows all these things already, but nonetheless, I'm sending him Twitter information as a person, a citizen of the world, to let him know the challenges that he'll have ahead, and that he should commit himself to peace. It may cost him his life, but it's better he commits to that. I'm going to say again to you guys, there's just some things bigger than our lives. And if our lives are lost in the process, we are pretty much assured that the process will not die with us, especially if it's something that's noble and right. And Jesus is saying it has to happen, So, like Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, these people who were killed, JFK, we have to stand for the right principle, and we have to go with what is right. When we know that humanity is at stake, then whether we lose our jobs, whether we are victimized, whether we are seen as, that we are demonized by the media, the public, whatever, we must do things because they're right. We're not doing it for feedback. Whether we're alienated from our families, etc., we must do what is right. And I know a lot of people have lost their jobs. Guess what? If you lost your job over this, guess what? That job wasn't for you, because the people are compromised there. If you've been censored on Twitter for this, then understand that the people running Twitter are not the cleanest of hands. And therefore, maybe you didn't deserve them. You just find another social media outlet and keep it moving. My point is that no matter what people try to do to censor you, you must not stay silent. You must stand up. The only time you can't stand up is if they kill you. But other than that, now I've seen such overwhelming response from people on the ground that I am very, very encouraged by the fact that the masses of people out there wanted a ceasefire, and that's why it happened. Put pressure on them. They're talking about it's a humanitarian pause. That's not enough. And if they're going to bomb after a humanitarian pause, what are you actually doing, right? So no, it must be an indefinite ceasefire, as Bernie Sanders said. And thanks to Bernie Sanders for actually speaking out. I was very disappointed that he was talking about, they had to get Hamas and blah, 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 blah. And he was talking about humanitarian pause. We need a ceasefire, period. On top of that, as Hamas is committed to exchanging the people who are captive, who are still alive, that they have, and I'm very happy about that. It's also very important to understand that freedom fighters, or people, I wouldn't call them freedom fighters, I call them rebels. They don't necessarily have to follow the rules because they are under oppression. So that's why I like Rebel Moon, because Rebel Moon says, there's another quotation saying, there are no heroes, only rebels. Meaning that the ways and means in which these rebels are going to go about doing things are not necessarily heroic. Okay? Like a Star Wars movie. They may do some questionable things, and you're going to have to understand where they're coming from. So that's why I kind of also appreciate Rebel Moon, because it kind of gives us insight into these fringe organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, etc. And I think it's very important for you guys to understand the perspective from which they're coming from, and sometimes the devious things that they do to make this thing a headline, to make sure that attention is presented to it. And so you see these parallels between what Zack Snyder is going to do. Now I'm very excited about what Zack Snyder is going to do when it comes to Rebel Moon. So I want to talk a little bit about that. First of all, the score is just fantastic. It does have feelings of The Empire Strikes Back, the Empire music, March of the Imperial Guard, that kind of thing. It has that little, with Admiral Noble, there's that Imperial kind of music you hear. And I find that very interesting. But at the same time, it seems to have, again, Junkie XL has these certain kinds of progressions. You've heard it in Batman v Superman. You heard it in Zack Snyder's Justice League. You hear it again, and I hear him building up a certain thing. So that's interesting, a certain kind of progression. But for the most part, what I like about these things, particularly Rebel Moon, it seems, Rebel Moon will have these different cultures, because something that's lost in translation is Palestine wasn't just the home of the Arabs and the Jews that were there. The Jews that escaped, the Inquisition and and the Crusades. No, it also had Bedouin, which is a nomadic tribe that is found in Africa, and some other groups of people were chased out of an ethnic cleanse from Palestine. So it's also important to realize that there were other groups of people that existed there, and those people need to come back. As you know, Israel does not allow Palestinians to return to Palestine, or AKA Israel. And right now they're doing the same thing. They're not allowing the Palestinians to go back into and settle back into northern Palestine. They were actually firing at them today, so they wouldn't go back. And I want to say, if a United Nations presence is there on the ground, and the United Nations presence to protect media, etc., we can have a better coverage of this, because Israel is controlling everything. They're controlling the narrative, they're controlling what goes into Gaza, they're controlling a lot of things, and they shouldn't. The international community should be allowed to enter that country and should be allowed to monitor the situations. And this not only goes for Israel, it also goes for Azerbaijan. It also goes for what is happening in Ukraine with Russia. There should be UN forces on the ground. What was missing in the Yugoslavia fight between the Serbs and the Croatians and the Bosnians was the fact that United Nations people were not on the ground, military people that is, being able to arbitrate. Now, of course, the country's kind of split into ethnic parts, but that country should be one country. And what it calls for, again, is an understanding of the different cultures of different people and how they want to socialize and how they want to group together. But it should be one nation, not three different separate pieces. So we've had enough experience in the world now of ethnic cleansing and of apartheid and also of genocide. We've seen that a number of times now to be able to know how to handle it. And I'm very disappointed in the leaders of the European bloc, all these imperialists, the leaders of the European bloc, the leaders of the United States of America, the leaders of China and Russia, these superpower peoples, how they have allowed these circumstances to happen and develop. I'm very disappointed in them. Their reaction time is always very slow, and they know what is happening, and they don't take precautionary and preventative measures. And let me just explain how simple this is. They somehow have been more successful at Iran and preventing Iran. So there are certain tropes, right? They demonize certain countries and they keep a close eye on those countries, but then other countries, they let them have free reign and do all kinds of crazy things. Iran, yes, it has an oppressive government, okay? And people are trying to protest, and they've been taken out and they've been imprisoned and stuff like that. And Iran was a democracy once upon a time. What I will say, though, is that the United Nations needs to be strong on countries that are violating sovereignty of other countries. It doesn't matter how those countries are run. You can't violate another country's sovereignty. So, Russia and Mr. Vladimir Putin, regardless of what motivations you people may try to ascribe to what Mr. Putin is doing, he is wrong for violating Ukraine's sovereignty. And even if a part of Ukraine wants to secede from Ukraine, it is not through war that you secede, but through legal means they can have that happen. And so it is a complete violation. And I am with the Ukrainians to fight to their last breath and die for what they believe, even though I don't exactly agree with some of their philosophy and what they are doing in Ukraine. but they are a sovereign nation. And you cannot violate a nation's sovereignty. You can't just overlook that. It's just like Hamas committed atrocities in Israel. You cannot just overlook the atrocities that they have done, even though you can understand why. It's still atrocities. And in the Western world, with the rules of engagement, they have committed war crimes, whether they like it or not. That is what you have to say. You can't excuse them from it. Even though we do understand the morality of it, you cannot excuse them legally. Now, with respect to excuse me, Rebel Moon coming out this year, I hope that you guys, if you guys can see it in the theater, please go and see it in the theaters. It won't be available in my country. In theaters, I'll have to see it December 22nd. I have to get my Netflix subscription. There are two movies I want to see. That, and I also want to see Blue-Eyed Samurai. That really looks pretty cool. That animation. So I'll be looking forward to that. And I hope that Rebel Moon is instructive and something I can speak on. But I also want to say one more thing before I get out of here. And again, I see that there were 4 people here, and then there was 2, and then there was 3. Now there's 1. Don't forget to smash the like button. Show me some love, would you? All right, so anyway, with respect to Rebel Moon, you guys know almost all the latest information. You've seen it on Twitter. If you've been on Twitter, you would see all the tweets and stuff. So I'm not really going to all of that. What I want to say to you guys, though, is you will not see me speaking about Restore the Snyderverse right now. You will see me focus completely on Rebel Moon, promoting completely Rebel Moon. I may tie in and fuse Rebel Moon with Free Palestine every now and then. But ultimately, in the end, we're going to be talking about Rebel Moon. So Rebel Moon's going to probably occupy my campaign for the rest of this year until it comes out. And then afterwards, I'll give you a review of Rebel Moon as well. With respect to Napoleon, I didn't go see it in the theaters. I don't know if it's in the theaters where I live, but I haven't gone to see it. But people will say, well, why are you not supporting Ridley Scott's Napoleon? Because as much as I'm interested in it, right now I'm not really, I don't know how to explain this to people, but to me, anytime somebody starts to go into aggressive wars, and especially Napoleon of all people, anyway, you go into aggressive wars, the wars don't seem to accomplish anything. Have you noticed that? They bombed the crap out of the Palestinians. Mostly civilians died, right? Nothing really came out of that. What came out, where they actually made progress with the hostages and etc., was in talks, which shows talks and talking to one another is superior to fighting one another. Now, you would say, well, Hamas started fighting first. Yes, they attacked military bases, and Hezbollah attacked military bases in the north. When Hamas stopped fighting, Hezbollah stopped fighting, showing that Hamas is an extension, and they have an understanding between them, Hamas and Hezbollah. But my point is that violence doesn't need to beget violence, particularly the violence that happened that was on an epic scale. Okay, this is epic scale violence, in which Israel mowed down pretty much half of Gaza is in ruins. And the main utilities, the main people who maintain Gaza and carry forward Gaza have been destroyed. All right? But, Palestinians are very resilient. They were ready to go back to their where they lived in the north and everything and start back, which is amazing. And you got to give them, the Palestinians have a lot of heart as well. They're actually very loving, caring people, I found out. If a Jew was to go into Palestine right now, into Gaza right now, the Gazans wouldn't kill the Jew. They won't. And how I know this? There's a Jewish reporter who lived in Gaza, Dan Cohen. And he was able to document a lot of the atrocities that happened there. And while people say that Gaza is not occupied, it is occupied, and I'll explain how. Israel controls what goes into Gaza. Israel monitors the people in Gaza. They have drones flying overhead all the time. The people don't have any privacy. If they want to, they can sweep in with soldiers and stuff into Gaza. They control who leaves Gaza. In fact, nobody can leave Gaza. So what I'm trying to say is and Gaza has no airports. They have no, you know, they have no shipping, nothing. You know, it's amazing. It's amazing. So they regulate everything. So that's like an occupation in and of itself. Um, but I got to say to you guys that in spite of all that, the people are so resilient that it makes me feel proud to see them pressing onwards and ready to continue life. And so much damage, so much destruction, so much loss, you know. But once again, freedom comes at a price, and this price is in blood, and a lot of Gazans have died. But we want to remember them, and a lot of very talented people. We have some really great doctors. You know, one of the most remarkable doctors died in Gaza, and he and his family died. The place was bombed, and people have been targeted by Israel. You know, the IDF. It's just been very gross. It's been very terrible. Hopefully, the IDF can talk down Netanyahu. They actually talked Netanyahu down when it comes to the hostages, so it was their idea. And then again, it probably will be their idea to, you know, to continue the ceasefire, because I'm going to say this: the credibility of Israel, it goes down the tube the more violence they do. And that, again, people come before land. So why are you trying to do a land grab when you have the people there? You know, they want a land grab to get oil? Come on, man. Come on. The Ben Gurion channel? So the channel's more important than people? So, you know, Netanyahu he's not the person to govern Israel, neither in wartime or in peace. His decisions are highly, 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 highly flawed, because he's not thinking straight. He's thinking hate. He's thinking how to, you know, control people. And we need somebody who's more moderate, who's willing to listen, even though I think most of the people of Israel will not be necessarily receptive to the Palestinians having more freedom and stuff like that. I think it's because they don't know the Palestinian peoples. They haven't met them. They haven't gone to Palestine. They haven't gone to Gaza. They haven't gone to the West Bank. They have a lot of people inside of Israel haven't done that. Now, the settler colonies, they have been there, and they've been nasty and mean and horrible. But for the people inside of Israel themselves, they don't know about that, you know? So that's what I got to say for now on this topic of Rebel Moon and so on. I hope you guys go see Rebel Moon. I hope we can do some good numbers with Rebel Moon. Those of you going to the theaters, really support this movie to the hilt, please. For me, I won't be able to see it in the theaters because I'm not in a country where I could see it in the theaters. If there was a theatrical run somewhere, I would be on it immediately. So it's very late in the night. It's probably 12 something now. So I'm going to just shut it down right here. I'm rocking back and forth because I'm very sleepy. You guys have a good night. God bless you all. I'm going to catch you guys later. But definitely Rebel Moon all day, every day of the week. Please support preserving people's lives. I am definitely a supporter of Free Palestine. I am also a supporter of freeing the hostages, all of them. And those two things are happening. Not in the amount that we want, but it's happening. So praise God on that. And I hope to see you guys later. We will talk, maybe tomorrow I might talk, do another video. We'll see. But as of now, I need to go take a rest because I'm very tired. So I will see you guys later. I am Christ, I am disciple, what you need on the other channel. Peace to everybody. Have a good night.